So in today's session, we are actually discussing workflows, guys. As we all know, workflows are used to automate the process. Workflows are used to automate the process. You guys are clear, right? Well, guys, workflows can be created on any table. You can create workflow on incident table, problem table, change table, knowledge table, catalog item table. You can create workflow on any tables. Okay. But when it comes to the catalog items, you have to create the workflow on the requested item table. When it comes to the catalog items, you have to create the workflow on the requested item table. Requested item table name is sc underscore req underscore item. On this particular table, you have to create a workflow. Okay. Why do we have to create the workflow on this particular table? Because once you submit the catalog form, this is the catalog form, right? Once you submit this catalog form, okay, first of all, it will create a request. It will create a request. Okay. So once the request is created, under the request, the requested item is actually iPhone 16. Under this requested item is iPhone 16. On this requested item table, you have created a workflow. Okay. You can see here, the requested item table name is sc underscore req underscore item. On this table, you created a workflow, guys. Okay. Getting my point? On this table, we created a workflow. If you see here, if you go to the workflow properties here, we have created the workflow on the requested item table, sc underscore req underscore item. Requested item table, we have created this workflow. Okay. Guys, here, this is a requested item field. These are actually requested item fields. Okay. These are actually requested item variables. These are actually requested item variables. Okay. Clear, right? So if you want to get the requested item field values, let us say requested item due date I want. Okay. Then I can use current object, guys. Current dot due date. Current dot due date. If I want to get a requested item requested for value, current dot requested for. Okay. If I want requested item watch list, I will use current dot watch list. Okay. So this is how you can get the requested item values in the workflow using current object. Requested item values you can use. Requested item values you can get it using current object, guys. Remember this point. Okay. In the requested item, you have variables here, right? These are actually, this is called variable editor, guys. This is called variable editor. So these are actually variables, requested item variables. If you want to access, you have to use current dot variables dot requested for. Okay. Current dot variables dot email. Okay. Location. Department. Storage. Requested item values, you can get it using current object directly. Requested item variable values, you can use current dot variable start variable name. Clear, right? Suppose you have created this workflow on the incident table. Suppose you have created the workflow on the table. Let us imagine you have created this workflow on the incident table. Well, current object refers to incident table here. Current object refers. Suppose you have created the workflow on current object refers to incident record field values. Current dot caller ID. Current dot category. Current dot subcategory. Current dot short underscore description. So likewise, you can actually get incident record values using current object if you are creating the flow on the incident. Object refers to the table that you have selected here, guys. Remember. Okay. Well, here in the if activity, if is a conditional activity, guys. If you go to the okay, if you core tab here, condition here. This activity I have dragged here. So in this, I have got dot variables dot requested for. Requested for is a reference field, right? Okay. Is it for everyone, guys? Is working for everyone? Is it audible now? Is it better now? Okay. Okay, fine. So I'm able to access the, okay. I'm able to access the variable values using current dot variables dot variable name. Requested for is a reference field, guys. Requested for is a reference field. Okay. As it is a reference field, we can dot work the reference field. Requested for dot manager. Okay. And so this activity is checking the requester has manager or not. If manager is there, it will go to this activity. So this activity will actually keep there is a field called approval field here. In the requested item table, there is a field called approval field. Let me add that on the form. So you can see there is a field called approval field here. I'm adding this approval field to the form. Okay. You can see the approval field. It is actually showing here as rejected, right? Okay. So what I'm doing is using this activity, I'm keeping the approval state as requested. Then I am sending an approval to the requested for manager. So you can see, so in the answer.push, you can use current dot variables dot variable name as this requested for is a manager, right? Requested for is a reference field, right? We can dot work it, dot manager. I am sending an approval to the requested for manager. So once he approved it, I am actually marking the approval state as approved. Mark as approved. Okay. Catalog task. So once it is approved, it will actually create a catalog task. Guys, here in the catalog task activity, there is an object called task object. There is an object called task object. This task object is used to fill the field values on the task table. So there is a task table called SC underscore task table. So catalog task means SC underscore task is. So in this table, let me just open this table. So if I want to fill this all field values, if I want to fill all these field values, okay, I have to use task object. Task object refers to catalog task fields. Okay. So here, what I am doing here, task.short description is equal to current.short description I have kept here. Okay. So current means here requested item short description. Now what I am doing is I am going to write some static content. Description. Okay. Task.cmdb underscore ca. Configuration item. This field I want to set. Okay, task object refers to here sc underscore task, guys. Okay. Then you update this one. Then you have actually notification activity. So notification activity is used to send the email from workflow. So I told you, right? Notifications, email notifications can be sent out from ServiceNow in 4 ways. One is actually one is actually um, when record is inserted or updated. Second one is when the event is fired. Third one is from the flow designer. Fourth one is from the workflow. From the workflow, using this notification activity, we can actually send the emails. So once the email is actually sent out, we are actually keeping the requested item state as closed complete. This set values activity is used to set the requested item field values. The set values activity is used to set the requested item field values. So here, what you are doing here, you are actually keeping the requested item state as closed complete. Okay, we're keeping the state as requested item state as closed complete. Then you are actually ending the workflow here. So after that, once the requested item, if the requester has no manager, it will come to this path. It will keep the approval state as rejected. Then it will actually send a rejection email. Then it will keep the requested item state as closed complete. Then it will end the workflow. Suppose if the requester has manager and if he rejected it, again it will come to this rejection path. It will send an email notification as incomplete. It will actually mark the requested item as closed incomplete. And it will actually end the workflow. Okay, so we will try this. We will try this by testing it. Well, so this person has manager. This person has manager. So I think you didn't understand the concept, Nilma. Looks like so here in the workflow, in the if activity, so I did mention the condition. I did mention the condition. This is the condition. If current.variables.requested for has manager, it will return yes. So guys, it will give you truthy falsy value. Okay, if the manager is there, it will say true. If the manager is not there, it will say false. Okay, condition is there. Okay. So this requester has manager. This requester has manager. I am selecting this person as requested for. Selecting all the variables here. So I am just submitting this form. Once I submitted this form, it will actually create a request. Under the requested item is created. Under the requested item, we attach the workflow. That workflow will check the request for has manager or not. If manager is there, it will send an approval to the manager. Okay. So we will see the approval is generated to the manager or not. Now the approval is in the requested state. Okay. Let me scroll down and let me just click on show workflow here. See, it is actually waiting for the approval here. It is waiting for the approval from the manager. So we will see here in the approval, the requester's manager. The requester's manager has received the approval. So once they rejected this one, once they approved this one, once they approved this one, the approval state will be marked as approved. You can see approval state is marked as approved here. Once it is approved, okay, it will actually create a catalog task. We will see where exactly the workflow is waiting now. Now the workflow is actually waiting at the catalog task. So the workflow will wait for this task to be closed, because in the workflow, we have actually checked the wait for completion checkbox. We have checked the wait for completion checkbox here. As we have checked wait for completion checkbox here, the workflow is waiting waiting to be closed. Okay. So once we close this catalog task, let me scroll down here. There is a catalog task that is created, right? Once we close this catalog task, if you see here in the catalog task, requested item short description is populated as please provide the iPhone. Description, catalog task description. Configuration item is actually populated as this one. Okay. How these values are populated? In the catalog task activity, we have used task object to populate these three field values. We can see here task.short description. Please provide the iPhone. Task.description. Catalog task description. Task.cmdb_ca. This one. Okay. Clear, right? So using task object, we are actually able to populate this catalog task field values, guys. So what I want to do is I want to close this task. Okay. Let me just keep it as closed complete and close this one. Once the task is closed, the workflow will move forward. The workflow moves forward. Okay. And it will keep the state as closed complete. Okay. So this is actually a positive scenario. Let us now test negative scenario. Okay. I'm closing this one. Let me click on try it here. So I'm selecting system administrator, guys. If you see system administrator doesn't have manager. Manager is empty. Okay, if manager is empty, what will happen? Request will be rejected, right? Request item will be rejected, right? I'm going to click on order now here. You can see here requested item. We'll just click on show workflow to see where exactly now the workflow is actually waiting. You can see it is actually going from this path. Requested for has no manager, then it is actually keeping the approval state as rejected. We will see is it keeping the approval state as rejected. Okay, it has set the requested item as closed incomplete. You can see here, it will actually send an email. It is keeping the approval status closed incomplete, and it is actually ending the workflow. Okay, clear, right? Hmm? Okay, fine. So we will now see another negative scenario. So this guy has manager. Okay. Now the approval state is actually in the requested state. Okay. Now it is actually waiting for the approval. So suppose if this guy rejected, we will see where exactly the workflow is actually standing now. Now the workflow is actually standing here. If it is rejected, it will go this path. I think this path is not tagged properly. Okay. This path is tagged, okay. But here it is showing from up there. Okay, fine. I am rejecting this one this time. So once I rejected this one, now you can see workflow RITM has been cancelled, rejected approval for the requested item. You can see approval is rejected and requested item state is set as closed complete, incomplete. Okay, till this point, everybody is clear, right? Okay, fine. Here we are actually getting requested item variables using current dot variables dot variable name here. As I mentioned here, current dot variables dot variable name. These are actually requested item variable values. These are actually requested item variable, sorry, requested item values. Okay. So if you can see current dot variables dot variable name, and we are using dot walking concept here. Fine. Guys, remember here I have sent an approval to the manager. If manager rejected 3 times, only then it will be considered as rejection. If manager rejected for the first time, it should not be considered as a rejection. If manager rejected 3 times, only then it will be considered as a rejection. In that case, we have to use a concept called rollback concept. Okay, we have to use a concept called rollback. So here in the workflow, in the utilities, you will be able to see rollback to. There is no rollback to here. Just type rollback. Rollback to is available under approvals. Just to get the rollback to here. This rollback to activity will move the workflow towards backward direction. Okay. This rollback to activity, see, workflow will always move forward, right? If the workflow has to be go backwards, then we can use rollback to. So when the approval is rejected, again, I want to send an approval. If the approval is rejected, again, I want to send an approval again. Okay. So every time when the approval is rejected, again approval will be generated. So we have to limit it, right? Every time when it is rejected, again it will generate the approvals. So we have to limit 3 times, right? So to limit, we have to use another activity called turn style activity. Turn style activity. So this turn style activity, okay, this turn style activity is used to limit how many times a workflow can pass through the same activity. This turn style activity is used to limit how many times a workflow can pass through the same activity. I'm using turn style activity here. Okay. So I'm just mentioning here as 2 times here. First time, anyhow, approval is getting generated 2 times. You can see allowed iterations. 2 times I mentioned here. Okay. You can say continue. If 3 times are completed, we'll reject it. We'll do one thing. We will reframe the workflow again. Okay. So I'm just zooming in again. If the approval is rejected, it will actually move the workflow towards backward direction. How many times? 3 times. Only 2 times. First time it is generated, rejected. Another 2 times it will allow. Total 3 times. So we will check that part. Guys, remember, rollback to activity is used to move the workflow towards backward direction. This turnstile activity is used to limit how many times a workflow can pass through the same activity. So number of times, how many times you want to limit, you can actually limit it using turnstile activity. Okay. Well, we'll just try this workflow by testing it. Okay. I'm rejecting for the first time, guys. First time rejected. So rejected approval for requested item. Okay. Again, it is in the requested state. Second time I'm rejecting it. We'll take a look at the workflow now. Show workflow. You can see it is actually going to this path. So third time I am rejecting again. Okay, third time I'm rejecting. What is it telling? The workflow request item has been cancelled. Requested item is this one. If you see, once you rejected 3 times, it is considering it as rejection. If you go to the workflow and refresh this one, you will be able to see the workflow is now closed incomplete. Okay. So this rollback to activity and turnstile activity is used to limit how many times a workflow can pass through the same activity. Okay. Fine. Now we'll go to the workflow again. In the workflow, in the approval user activity is used to send the approvals to the individual users. Activity is used to send the approvals to the individual users. Well, I'm actually sending approval to the requested for manager, right? Along with the requested for manager, I want to send approval to 3 more members. Okay. So then what I have to do? You have to use 3 answer.push here. Okay. So here you have to pass the system ID of the users whom you want to send the approval. I'm just going to the users. Okay. I'm keeping the person system ID here. Okay, we are sending totally approval to the 4 members. One is actually requested for manager and rest of them are 3 members. Okay, if you scroll down here, anyone to approve, out of those 4 members, if anyone approved, it will be considered as approval. If anyone rejected, it will be considered as rejection. Okay, when anyone rejects, reject the approval. So everyone to approve, let us say there are actually 4 members, right? 4 members has to approve. Okay, 4 members have to approve. If 4 members doesn't approve, it won't be considered as approval. If any one rejected, it will be considered as rejection again, guys. Okay. Okay. Fine. So here, first response from anyone. If the first response approved, it will be considered as approved. If the first response is rejected, it will be considered as rejected. Okay. Clear, right? Okay. Well, here condition based on script. Uh, let us say we are actually sending approvals to the 4 members, right? Out of them 4 members, 2 members approved, it will be considered as approval. If okay, if 2 members rejected, it should be considered as rejection. So 2 members should reject 3 times. Getting my point? So here counts the total. Total 4 members. Counts the total means it will give you 4. Counts dot approved means how many members approved. Counts dot rejected, how many rejected. How many are in the requested state. Okay. So I am writing the logic here. If counts dot approved equal to 2, then you have to set answer as approved. Answer is equal to approved. Okay. Counts dot rejected is equal to 2. Then answer is equal to rejected.
Okay. So totally, now you tell me here, guys. Totally, if you want to reject it, two members should reject three times. Two members. First time they have to reject two members. Second time two members. Third time three members. Six members. So two members should reject three times. Only then it should be considered rejection. I'll show you that. I'm going to submit the catalog form again. So totally four members are receiving the approval here. Four members are receiving the approval here. So one member approved. Okay. Two members should approve to consider it as approved, guys. Okay. Now it is actually waiting for another approval. So second member also approved. Then it will be considered as approval. You can see state is kept as approved here. If I scroll down here, if I click on show workflow, you will be able to see now it is actually kept as approved and it has created the catalog task. Now we will now see the rejection part here. We will now see the rejection part. Okay. Okay. We'll now submit the. Okay. So I'm rejecting it. Okay. So it is waiting for second reject. So now I rejected two, right? It will be considered as one rejection. Again, it will send an approval here. We'll now see the show workflow here. Now it is going this path. If two members rejected only, it will be considered as rejection. Two members should reject three times. Okay. I am rejecting this one as well. Two times. Third time. Now it is considered as rejection. Okay. So now we'll go to the workflow. In the workflow, the approval user activity will send approvals to the approval user activity will send approvals to the individual users. What if I have to send approvals to the group members? So guys, in ServiceNow we have actually individual user approvals. We have actually group approvals. So sys group approval table name is sysapprover underscore approval. Sysapprover underscore approval dot list. Hmm. Go to approvals here. The table name is approval underscore approver, guys. So in this table, all the approvers are stored, guys. All the approvals are stored here. Okay. So we have group approvals, guys. This group, which one? This approval underscore group. This is the table name. In this table, group approvals are stored, guys. So in this table, group approvals are stored. Okay. So for which group we have sent the approval and all, we can see. From that group, which user has approved, we can see here. So if I want to send an approval to the individual, okay, where is this workflow editor? Okay. If I have to send an approval to the group, then I have to use approval group. Okay. So guys, here you can actually select the static group. Static group means it will send an always approval to the same group. If you want to send an approval to the dynamic group means you have to use advanced here. So in the advanced, in the answer dot push, you have to pass that group system ID. Okay, you can pass that group system ID dynamically here. Okay, I am going to the groups. I am taking this particular group system ID. I am sending an approval to this particular group. Okay, so it will actually add a group approval, guys. It will add a group approval. Okay, so in the group, if all group members have to approve it. Can you can see an approval from each group. An approval from each group. Suppose if you are sending approval to the three groups, in the each group, one member should approve. Okay. An approval from any group. If you have sent an approval to the three groups, any one group. An approval from everyone in all groups. First response from each group. First response from any group. Condition based on script. Condition based on script. In the group, at least three members should approve. Okay. So in the group, at least two members should approve. So then what I can do, I can actually uncomment this line of script. Okay. Answer is equal to approved. Okay. If two members rejected, okay. So we are sending an approval to the application development group, right? In that group, two members should approve to consider it as approval. If two members rejected, it should be considered as rejection. So once it is rejected, I am again passing the flow to negative path here. Okay. We'll just give a try here. Okay. On this requested item, workflow will be triggered and four approvals are generated. Two members approved, it will be considered as approval. If two members rejected, it will be considered as rejection. So now you can see it has sent a group approvals. So it has sent a group approval. You can see group approval is actually attached to the application development. So those group members will receive the approval. Out of them, two members approved, it will be considered as approved. I am just approving the one. Okay. Still, it is actually waiting for the second approval. So if I approve the second one, it will be considered as in that group I have actually approved second approval. Now it is actually set the approval state as approved. If you just click on show workflow, now it has actually created the catalog task. It has actually two members approved here, two members approved from the group, then it is actually keeping the approval state as approved, then it is actually creating the task. Okay. Well, one thing to remember here is that, guys, we can add the manual approvals in the middle. We can add the manuals approvals in the middle by clicking on edit here. By clicking on edit, you can add the manual approvals. See, these approvals are actually generated from the workflow. These approvals are generated from the workflow. I want to add one manual approval and the workflow has to wait for that particular manual approval as well. Okay. So let me just add a manual approval activity here. Okay. I am actually adding one manual approval activity. All manual user or group approvals. Okay. Once all the manual users approved, if any manual approval rejected, again we'll go this path. Okay. So now this time I am going to add some manual approvals here. Okay. This time I'm actually adding some manual approvals here. So these are actually manual approvals, guys. Let me mark it as requested. I have added these manual approvals here. The workflow has to wait for this particular manual approvals. Okay, clear, right? I approved this one. I approved this one. So it will actually create a group approval. This time it will create a group approval. Now the group approval is created. Okay, out of them I have to approve 2 members here. Okay, now here group approval is also provided here. Group approval is also provided. Now we will see where exactly the workflow is actually waiting. Now the workflow is actually waiting at the manual approvals because we have added manual approvals in the workflow, right? In the requested item, right? So once these manual approvals are actually approved, only then the workflow will move forward. Okay, all manual approvals should be approved, right? It is approved. Okay. Now the workflow will move forward and it will create a catalog task here. Now you can see it has created a catalog task. Now the workflow has moved forward. So here it is actually sending an approval to the individual users. It is sending an approval to the group members. It is actually waiting for the manual approvals. If there is any manual approval, it is actually waiting for that manual approval. And last one for today. And here, instead of using these 3 activities, we can use only one activity, that is actually approval coordinator activity. Okay, in the approvals, you have actually approval coordinator activity. You can use this activity in place of this approval user approval group approval manual approvals. Okay, I'll just show you. So the difference between these three and the approval coordinator is that These are actually sequential approvals, one by one, one after one. If you use approval coordinator, all approvals, user approvals, group approvals, and it will wait for manual approvals all at a time. Okay, I'll show you that. I'm removing all these activities here. Transtyle activity, roll back to activity, you are clear, right? So instead of all these, I am going to use approval coordinator. All child activities to be approved. Okay, so in the approval coordinator activity, we can actually add child activities here. You can see, click on plus to add child activities. In the child activities, you can see approval user, approval group, manual approvals. Let me add approval user here. Okay, only I'm sending only approval to the manager. Approval group. Application development group. So I am selecting that application development group from here. Yeah, static. Same group will be receiving the email. So manual approval. So all manual approvals are grouped to be approved. Okay. If it is approved, it will give the approval status. If it is rejected, okay. Now we will give a try now. You can see it has sent approval to the individual user and group members at a time. Okay. So once I approved all these things, the workflow will move forward and it will keep the, we will see where exactly the workflow is actually waiting. Now the workflow is actually waiting for the approval user. Okay. So once this guy has approved it, the workflow will move forward and it will actually mark the approval state as approved here. and it will actually create a catalog task. Okay. So that is how you will actually um, create the you will actually send the approvals from the workflow, guys. So in the workflow, in the approval group, so we see condition based on script, right? So condition based on script. Okay. So here, guys, we can send approval to the multiple group members, right? Count dot total means how many groups you have sent approvals. Count dot approved means let us say you have sent an approval to the 5 groups, so it will give 5. Out of 5, how many groups approved? Let us say 2 approved, 2. Out of them, how many groups rejected? So in the each group, groups dot groups group ID dot approved. In the each group, how many members approved? Understand, right? In the each group, how many members approved? In the each group, how many rejected? In the each group, how many approvals are there? To check that, we will use this one. Okay. So I have uncommented this script in the previous example. In the group 2 members approved, it will be considered as approval. In the group 2 members rejected, it will be considered rejected. That is what the logic we have written in our previous example. So that is how the approvals will work in the workflow, guys. Okay. We will see. We will understand some other activities in the next session. Okay.